Welcome to Searching the Scriptures. Our Bible teacher will be Gunther von Harringa Sr. In this series of studies, we will be focusing on the book of Judges. Without further ado, let's look into God's Word, the Bible.
Welcome to Searching the Scriptures. This is going to be lesson number 36 in chapter 1 of the book of Judges. And we left off at verses 16 to 18 that we're considering. And the children of the Kenite, Moses' father-in-law, went up out of the city of palm trees with the children of Judah into the wilderness of Judah, which lieth in the south of Arad. And they went and dwelt among the people. And Judah went with Simeon his brother, and they slew the Canaanites that inhabited Zephath, and utterly destroyed it. And the name of the city was called Hormah. Also Judah took Gaza with the coast thereof, and Askelon with the coast thereof, and Ekron with the coast thereof. We're attempting to understand some of the spiritual implications in this passage regarding the descendants of Moses' father-in-law, along with the children of Judah who went into the wilderness of Judah to dwell among the people. We also learned that Judah and Simeon together, and we saw this earlier, since they both shared in the same inheritance, the same lot, which is a large portion of land in the south of Israel, almost going into Egypt. They destroyed the city Zephath, renaming it Hormah, which is interesting because Hormah is the word for destruction, or it means destruction. And in so doing, they also took these other cities, Gaza, Askelon, and Ekron. Now, we want to try to identify who the children of Moses' father-in-law are. And in order to do this, we have to back up a bit and consider the man himself. I made the point in our last study that he was the priest of Midian. And also he's assigned 3 different names, and as we read in Exodus, he had 7 daughters. And one of them, whose name was Zipporah, he gave to Moses for his wife. Let's read Exodus 2, 16 and 21. Exodus 2, 16 and 21. Now the priest of Midian had 7 daughters, and they came and drew water and filled the troughs to water their father's flock. Verse 21, and Moses was content to dwell with the man, and he gave Moses Zipporah his daughter. And then, of course, they had 2 sons, Gershom and Eliezer. But the fact that it says he was the priest of Midian, it's Strong's number 4080. And we first read about the Midianites, who were the descendants of Midian, who was one of Abraham's sons through Keturah. We read this in Genesis 25, 1 through 2. Genesis 25, 1 through 2. Then again, Abraham took a wife, and her name was Keturah. And she bare him Zimran, and Jokshan, and Medan, and Midian, and Ishbak, and Shua. So we understand a little bit about the Midianites, but the interesting thing, as I mentioned, is that God assigns 3 names to this man, which is unusual. Now, it's true that some of the kings, as Mr. Camping pointed out in the biblical calendar of history, had different names, even though it's the same person. So let's look at some of these names. They're actually Reuel or Raguel, Jethro, and Hobab. We read about Reuel first, which actually is a compound Hebrew word signifying a friend of God. And immediately, we think about Abraham, because Abraham also was called the friend of God. But I just read Exodus 2:18. I'll reread it. And when they, that is his daughters, came to Reuel, their father, he said, "How is it that ye are come so soon today?" The other name that he's given is, and by the way, Reuel is Strong's number 7467. The other name is Jethro, which is Strong's number 3503. And apparently it signifies his abundance, according to the Blue Letter Bible. But I looked at this more closely, and it's actually 3503 is derived from 3499. And 3499 is generally translated as rest, or remnant, or residue, which I think is going to be more accurate than his abundance. And it appears in 9 different passages, and I'll just read one of them, which is in Exodus 3:1. Exodus 3, verse 1. Now Moses kept the flock of Jethro, his father-in-law, the priest of Midian. And he led the flock to the backside of the desert and came to the mountain of God, even to Horeb. Also, we can read about Jethro in Exodus 4:18. And here, in this particular verse, both strong numbers, 3503, as well as, because 3503 also has a root word, or one of its a derived word or root word is 3500, which is Jether. So that they both refer to Jethro. One is 3503 and the other is 3500. In this verse, both are listed, one right after the other. And this is Exodus 4:18. And Moses went and returned to Jethro, his father-in-law, and said unto him, Let me go, I pray thee, and return unto my brethren which are in Egypt, and see whether they be yet alive. And Jethro said to Moses, Go in peace. Now the third name is Hobab. And again, apparently Hobab means cherished. And it surfaces in 2 passages. One of them is Numbers 10:29, and the other one is Judges 4:11. But let's look at Numbers 10:29 first. There we would read, and here actually we also find the name Raguel or Reuel. And Moses said unto Hobab, the son of Raguel the Midianite, Moses' father-in-law, We are journeying unto the place of which Jehovah said, I will give it you. Come thou with us, and we will do thee good. For Jehovah hath spoken good concerning Israel. Now, it's interesting, apparently Moses' father-in-law was the son of Raguel, and that's maybe why he was also given the name Reuel, which is maybe slightly different, but the same idea. He takes on his father's name as well. All right, let's see. Okay, Judges 4:11 is the next one, and this actually is a very helpful verse, and we're going to delve into Judges 4 if the Lord allows us to get there someday. Now Heber the Kenite, which was of the children of Hobab, the father-in-law of Moses, had severed himself from the Kenites and pitched his tent unto the plain of Zaanim, which is by Kedesh. And that whole account has to do with Barak and Deborah as they defeat Sisera, type of Satan. And like I say, we'll get into that. But actually, the fact that Heber, and we have to keep in mind that I read earlier, I think it was in our last study, I mentioned the fact that the Kenites were the first of 10 nations, heathen nations that are mentioned in the Bible, having to do with the land of Canaan. And this is an interesting verse because it says that Heber separated himself or severed himself from the Kenites. And we read, for example, this word had severed is Strong's number 6504. So it seems from the context, and we'll develop this further once we get into Judges 4, but his wife Jael is the one that killed Sisera. And so this separating themselves from the Kenites seems to point to the idea that they are, at the very minimum, a picture of the elect, because she represents the elect as they, kill Satan, or they're used by God, to further the death of Satan. And of course, this again has to do with the fact, and like I say, I don't want to get into it right now, but it's very significant that he separated himself from the Kenites. And we also see Moses' father-in-law also a priest of Midian, which again is possibly another clue that he himself had he aligned himself, with the children of God. And we're going to see this in a little bit. But let's look at this word. We can go to Genesis 13:9. Genesis 13:9. This word is used with regard to Abraham and Lot parting ways. Is not the whole land before thee? Separate thyself. This is 6504. I pray thee from me. Abraham is speaking to Lot. If thou wilt take the left hand, then I will go to the right. Or if thou depart to the right hand, then I will go to the left. Also, in Genesis 25:23, God answers Rebekah's question about the struggle that was taking place in her womb. We read, and Jehovah said unto Rebekah, 2 nations are in thy womb, and 2 manner of people shall be separated. That's 6504. From thy bowels, and the one people shall be stronger than the other people. And the elder, that is Esau, shall serve the younger, which would be Jacob. Also, if we go to Deuteronomy 32:8, we find this statement, when the Most High divided to the nations their inheritance, when he separated, again, 6504, the sons of Adam, he set the bounds of the people according to the number of the children of Israel. We'll look at one other verse, and this is in Ruth, verse 17 of Ruth 1, 16 to 17. It's really a beautiful illustration of Ruth's allegiance by God's grace, not only to the God of Israel, but also to her mother-in-law, Naomi, as she represents God's elect. And Ruth said, "Entreat me not to leave thee," that is, to leave Naomi, "to return from following after thee. For whither thou goest, I will go, and where thou lodgest, I will lodge. And thy people shall be my people, and thy God my God. Where thou diest, will I die, and there will I be buried. Jehovah do so to me, and more also, if aught but death part thee and me." Again, part is this word 6504. So separated or part or severed, as we find in the case of Judges 4:11. We also learn more about Moses' father-in-law from Exodus 18, 1 to 12. Exodus 18, 1 to 12. When Jethro, the priest of Midian, Moses' father-in-law, heard of all that God had done for Moses and for Israel, his people, and that Jehovah had brought Israel out of Egypt, then Jethro, Moses' father-in-law, took Zipporah, Moses' wife, and he had sent her after he had sent her back, and her 2 sons, of which the name of one was Gershom, for he said, "I have been an alien in a strange land." And the name of the other was Eliezer, "For the God of my father," said he, "was mine help, and delivered me from the sword of Pharaoh." And Jethro, Moses' father-in-law, came with his sons and his wife unto Moses into the wilderness, where he encamped at the mount of God. And he said unto Moses, "I, thy father-in-law Jethro, am come unto thee, and thy wife, and her 2 sons with her." And Moses went out to meet his father-in-law, and did obeisance, and kissed him, and they asked each other of their welfare, and they came into the tent. And Moses told his father-in-law all that Jehovah had done unto Pharaoh and to the Egyptian for Israel's sake, and all the travail that had come upon them by the way, and how Jehovah delivered them. And Jethro rejoiced for all the goodness which Jehovah had done to Israel, whom he had delivered out of the hand of the Egyptians. And Jethro said, "Blessed be Jehovah, who hath delivered you out of the hand of the Egyptians, and out of the hand of Pharaoh, who hath delivered the people from under the hand of the Egyptians. Now I know that Jehovah is greater than all gods, for in the thing wherein they dealt proudly, he was above them." And Jethro, Moses' father-in-law, took a burnt offering and sacrifices for God. And Aaron came, and all the elders of Israel, to eat bread with Moses' father-in-law before God. I think it was 4 times that we find the word mentioned, Jethro as well as Moses' father-in-law. And again, keep in mind that this word is derived from a word meaning rest, remnant, or residue. So that's quite interesting. We also see that possibly because he had 3 names, this also points to the purpose of God, and the fact that he was a priest, and that he took a burnt offering and sacrifice for God would also indicate, again, at the very minimum, that he is a representative of the elect and of the priesthood, and that also has to do with the fact that he would identify with the high priest, the Lord Jesus Christ, and apparently, and I think this is correct. Apparently, this incident occurred prior to God laying out all of the instructions for the building of the tabernacle, for the priestly garments, for all of the laws and the responsibilities that the priest had to do. And so I can't think of another incident where you have a priest in view, obviously apart from Aaron and his sons, and in the Levitical priesthood, which God would develop, in the book of Exodus, except for Melchizedek. Now, Melchizedek was a theophany. God actually appeared as this priest and king. He's not only a priest; he's also a king. He's called King of Salem, and also a high priest. King of righteousness as well. It's not that Moses' father-in-law is a theophany in any sense. However, he is identified at the very minimum with the elect and as a priest, possibly underscoring the fact of the priesthood of the believers as well. Now, we then read about, and this is in verses 19 to 36 and Judges 2, that is 19 to 36 of Judges 1, down to verse 7 of Judges 2. And in this passage, we see this cycle that I've talked about throughout this study. You have rebellion. Then God brings judgment. He raises up a deliverer, and then there's a period of rest, and then the cycle, continues. I don't know if we have enough time for this. I might have to pick this up in our next study because we're running out of time, and it's a long passage, and so I think I'll do that. May the Lord richly bless you.
Thank you for joining us today for Searching the Scriptures. Until next time, to God be the glory.
Oh, clap your hands, all you people, shout to God with a voice of triumph, for the Lord Most High is awesome. He is a great King over all the earth. Oh, clap your hands, all you people, shout to God with a voice of triumph, for the Lord Most High is awesome.